Chinese state media shared that Huang Jiefu, head of the China National Organ Donation and Transplantation Committee, hopes that by the year of 2023, China will become the world's largest organ transplantation country. Someone wondered, where do the massive amounts of organs come from? Someone replied, after Wang Lijun escaped to the U.S. Embassy, officials from the Ministry of Health immediately declared that most of China's organ sources were provided by death row prisoners. But there is only a limited number of prisoners sentenced to death each year. I couldn't figure out why some airports opened a special passage lane just for transporting organs. Someone replied, in fact, China's organ transplantation is already the first. It's just that the number of transplant surgeries done in hospitals is too high, while the number of organs that were actually donated is so low. It is highly possible that people were killed on demand. Someone mocked, the CCP may promulgate a new organ donation law in the future, stating that it is an obligation of all Chinese citizens to donate organs. This line will also be printed on individual ID cards. I will donate organs voluntarily. This way, the CCP will be able to achieve its goal, and the Chinese people's organs will meet the needs of organ transplantation from nations all around the world. Someone replied, I can now understand the feelings of Westerners when they first hear organ harvesting. Chinese entrepreneur Li Huaiqing was sentenced to 20 years in prison for incitement to subvert state power. His wife said, my tears have been drained. Other than sadness, I only feel anger. Li Huaiqing is a billionaire. He was persecuted for his comments on WeChat. His family members refused to accept the charges and plan to appeal. Someone replied, those that have the opportunity to bypass the Great Firewall should make preparations in advance to physically escape Communist China before it's all too late. Someone replied, it's really not easy to leave the country now, given that several hundreds of exits have been locked. It would take an extraordinary amount of money to pass the checks, an amount that would be impossible for ordinary people to afford. Someone shared that the deputy minister of the CCP's propaganda department said on the 19th, resolutely prevent the party leadership from being downplayed in the name of integrated development, and resolutely prevent capital from manipulating public opinion. Someone felt that the CCP may be trying to take advantage of these private entrepreneurs. Someone replied, the current situation in China is actually very complicated because the CCP's red claws are also behind many private enterprises. Someone replied, the real, biggest, and most evil monopoly power is the CCP itself. Recently, there has been a heavy snowfall in northeastern China, which, according to local residents, has perhaps not been encountered in at least 10,000 years.
这车全在树底下呢啊！看看。这大暴雪，见过这么恶劣的天气吗？这就是黑龙江哈尔滨。看吧，就呲来，挑来，咦，我的乖乖，你说咋走嘞哈？回，已经失控了，司机不打眼了，咦，乖，你这，
Someone shared that the epidemic situation in Shanghai has been relatively serious recently. Someone replied, inspection, vaccines, quarantine, hotels, hospitals, food delivery. This COVID-19 one-stop service is about to become a pillar industry in communist China. Someone shared this video clip to show that the data of number of people who tested positive for COVID-19 in the US may not be accurate.
To a bombshell new report, up to 90% of positive COVID-19 tests in multiple states in our country should have been negative. And before Facebook censors this video, or Snopes or PolitiFact tries to slap a fact-check label on it, this report came from the New York Times. That's right, the New York Times. According to the Times, and I quote, standard tests are diagnosing huge numbers of people who may be carrying relatively insignificant amounts of the virus and are not likely to be contagious, end quote. And I quote,
someone replied, what this video described is in line with the actual situation in the hospital that I'm aware of, because the protective measures have been widely promoted, yet abnormally, the number of infected individuals is on the rise. Someone also shared that his father passed away in a nursing home earlier today. He was tested for COVID-19 3 times over the past 3 weeks. He was negative every time. COVID will be on his death certificate as the primary cause. Someone shared that this elderly lady who he was engaged in arm wrestling with is about to turn 100 years old. She contracted the virus in a nursing home 2 weeks ago. She did not receive much treatment but recovered. Someone replied, the infected elderly people that I met all recovered safely in the end. Someone said, this virus may really just be a tool. Someone shared his personal experience and said, I only took a flu vaccine once in the US. Before getting the shot, I had no problem, but I was sick for several days afterwards. Later, I heard that this vaccine cannot 100% guarantee that those who get a flu shot will never have the flu, because the flu mutates every year. I stopped getting the flu vaccine ever since. There are 4 people in my family who got vaccinated yet had the flu every year. I have only had flu twice in 20 years. The media will not report on these or arguments from people that agree with my perspective, because doing so may make some interest groups go bankrupt. Someone replied, I never got a flu shot, nor did I let my son get it. Someone replied, my daughter had been vaccinated against pneumonia once, but she got pneumonia after the vaccination. She was hospitalized for more than 1 week. Someone replied, I get sick every time I get a vaccine. After I stopped, I have only caught a cold once in 6 years. Someone replied, I had a shot 30 years ago, but I felt bad. I've never taken it since. Don't blindly believe in the so-called science. It's hard to say what it really implies these days. Someone replied, science now serves money.
Child, we will take you in. Child, we will bring you home. You'll be a flower that sees the spring.